p.m. Okay, first item on the our normal agenda is public comments. Let me read what it says. If anyone would like to speak to the board on any item that is not on the agenda, please fill out the public comment form and hand it to Alicia. If you would like to speak on the public hearing item, an opportunity will be presented during that time. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any presentations made concerning matters that are not listed on this agenda. Does anyone wish to speak on anything other than the agenda items at this time? I'll take that as a no. Okay, we'll move on. I'm going to do a little rearranging of the agenda items tonight to benefit people sitting around listening to things they probably don't want to listen to. So we're going to move our initial item was to board training, which you guys I'm sure are real interested in. We're going to move that to the end of the program, so you won't have to bear that. So, or we could do it now if it's a show of hands. We want to do it now. Okay, we're going to move it down, and we're going to start with the original item, which was case number item 3 on the original agenda, which is case RP 24001, the Highlands at Trophy Club, Neighborhood 5, Phase 2B, Lot 23R, Block G, Gardner replat is what we're calling this. I'm going to read this thing for you. Conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and make a recommendation to the town council on a replat request made by Derek Gardner on Lot 23R, Block G of the Highlands at Trophy Club Neighborhood 5, Phase 2B, approximately 0.292 acres of land for the addition of unplatted land. The property is addressed as 2643 Highlands Court and is situated in the Rosalinda Allen Survey, abstract number 17, Town of Trophy Club, Denton County, Texas, Gardner replat. I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:02 p.m. And we'll go to the staff report. Mr. Cox.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. A few years ago, Mr. Gardner approached the town requesting a purchase for just a little small parcel behind his property. Earlier this year, the town sold the parcel to Mr. Gardner. Y'all may recall that it included, one of the conditions was to replat. So to make those two parcels into one. The notice of public hearing was distributed as required by law, and as of today, staff hasn't received any letters in support or opposition. Staff does recommend approval with the following conditions that you'll see in your packet. So we had a couple red line comments, and the Eagle surveying, we had talked to them last week. They're going to make those adjustments, so by the time that it gets to council, those red line comments that we'd put on there, those will be fixed. And then also, we just need signatures, tax certificate, and the filing fees be provided and paid for prior to the filing with Denton County. So, if you've got any questions, I can answer them for you.
Yeah, I do. I have questions.
Well,
it has to do more with
do you want to?
process.
Do you want to?
I think we wait till we're done with the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
Till we
All right.
to talk and ask.
And the applicant's out of town, so.
So the applicant's not here. That was the next
Yeah.
question I had. Is the applicant here? So the applicant's not here. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this particular item? Anyone wish to speak specifically against this plat? No. Okay, good. Now I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:04 p.m. And now you can ask your questions.
All right. You've heard these before. The engineering drawings, will they show the actual wellhead locations as well as an ID, the Railroad Commission ID for those? I think there's 5 wellheads on that street.
Yes, but those are yes, but those are outside of that property now because those wellheads are capped. So that's why.
Right.
So that 300-foot line, that radius, we need that removed because that was prior to, that's when the wellheads were actually in working. So
Right.
we provided that paperwork for them to remove that radius.
Okay. What I'm referring to is the actual location of the wellheads on Rose Avenue there. And I'm asking if the engineering drawings are going to show that location with an ID number so that if we ever have to go back and reference, it'll be there.
Yes, those were done, what, back February or March? When we
Yeah,
brought
it's
that
been
to
a
you.
while, I'm just
Yes,
checking.
yes, yes, they're on there, yes.
All right, another thing I'm checking on is the preliminary plats require a drainage study to be performed at some point, and I'm wondering if that has been completed.
But that's not in regards to this application, this replat.
Yep.
No,
Well, here's my understanding. Any preliminary plat or final plat, the preliminary plat requires a drainage study to be conducted. It's listed, and it's point number 15 on the listings of preliminary plat requirements.
yeah, the drainage study's already been completed because that was town property.
That's the question. Has it been completed?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then the only other thing I wondered about is the zoning classification itself. I understand it's R12, and is there any documentation that shows that? I know the plat doesn't have it. Does some drawing or
Our zoning map,
report? That's it, just the zoning map?
yes, sir.
All right. That's all I got.
Okay, anybody else? No? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Second. A motion and a second. Any other further discussion or questions? Okay, move to vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is case number PD AMD 24.004, PD 13 Amendment, Track 1, Ship Shop. Conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and make a recommendation to the town council on a rezoning request made by the applicant, the Ship Shop, to amend Planned Development District 13, PD 13, Track number 1, to allow for truck and trailer rental as an accessory use with outdoor storage and display of vehicles. The subject property is legally described as the Village of Trophy Club Lot 1, approximately 3.79 acres, Denton County, Texas, and is generally located at the southwest corner of Trophy Club Drive and State Highway 114. The property is addressed as 2003 East Texas, 114 Suite 340, Trophy Club, Texas. And we'll open the public meeting at 6:08 PM. Staff report.
Are you going to go first?
Yeah, let him go first, please.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. So, May of this year, the applicant, Mr. Sanders, reached out to us regarding the expanding of his ship shop business to allow U-Haul vehicles to be brought onto their lot to assist with local demand. Staff's response was twofold. Allowing a business use to offer vehicles and trailers for rent, and then also to allow for outdoor storage of vehicles and trailers for rent. So PD 13 currently prohibits outdoor storage, and the business use of trucks and trailers for rent does not exist. And so, as you know, if it's not on the use chart, then it's prohibited. Our follow-up with Mr. Sanders included a link to PD 13, just so he could, see all the different uses. And then we also sent him an application for amendment to the PD. Somewhere late August, early September, Mr. Sanders met with the staff. We answered multiple questions regarding the application, and then just how to proceed moving forward. So this evening, here we are. We've got a quorum of commissioners. That was not easy to, as y'all know, trying to get October and then Thanksgiving holidays, trying to get a minimum of 4 of y'all here, and then also the applicant being present. So first thing, Trophy Club zoning ordinance and PD 13 do not include a definition for truck and trailer rental. We looked around surrounding towns and cities for definitions for that, and so we came up with, I'm sorry. So truck and trailer rental, the display and offering for rent of trucks, maximum size 26 feet, medium duty, and trailers designed to be towed by vehicles. So we also made a chart that you've got in your packet. We made a chart of, so we've got what the applicant is requesting and then staff's recommendation. And so without going into all of those details, there's a few that we did highlight. Applicant requesting the front row parking where you see that existing today. Our recommendation was moving it to the second row. For the cargo vans, for the trucks, everything pretty much stayed the same. He was requesting 4 additional trailers for in transit, and then the applicant's present, so I'll let him explain, you know, what the difference is in transit and permanent. We were recommending 2. And then towards the bottom of that chart, so the maximum number of businesses with truck and trailer rental accessory use on track 1, we were recommending 1 business in that entire track 1. And then for maximum parking would be 2. So then that brings up the parking situation. So PD 13 requires 1 per 200 square feet. So if you look on Denton County, you take the square footage of the entire area for track 1 and those buildings. Originally, the original site plan required 187. 176 was provided, so that's what's existing. The applicant identified that a total of 10 spaces would be dedicated for the U-Haul trucks, trailers, you know, for the rentals. Over the last 3-4 months, just by field observations, there's no shortage of parking, especially on that west end in front of K5. Summing up, public hearing notices were distributed as required by zoning ordinance and state law. No letters in support or opposition to this item were received to date. I want to clarify. So we received numerous, you know, over the last 5-6 months, phone calls, emails. I know Mrs. Ford is here. Miss Patricia Kiefer is here. There was a lot of dialogue, but the language for that I just read and that was in our agenda, that is very specific to that 200-foot radius. We're sending letters out, so you've got those homeowners that live back behind, and then also our Fort Worth Star Telegram notice. So we didn't receive anything from those inquiries because we document those. We'll ask their address and then, you know, so I just wanted to clarify that. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the applicant because he's got more details and all that for him.
Sir, can I have you state your name and address, please, for the record?
My name is David W. Sanders. I basically, I don't live in Trophy Club per se. I live just outside of Trophy Club, but.
Can you give us your address, please?
Okay, it is 1816 Lewis Crossing Drive, actually in the Keller area. This is Giovanni. She is my store manager. She's given you a copy of my presentation, which actually has more than what is on the overhead. Okay? It lists some other information that includes the 183 people that have signed a petition to allow me to, and they're all verified Trophy Club residences, people that I verified by seeing their driver's licenses that have requested that this be passed, and other information. How do I advance this? Do I use this, or do I? Down there, right there? Okay. All righty. Let me get to my, oh, okay,
Oh, okay, he's voting on it right now.
okay.
All right, give him just 1 second.
I need to go back here.
Just have to stay.
All right, give me a second. As soon as he gets us loaded, we can go through, because we're going to start with what we have there, and then we'll talk about the other slides that are on there. Basically, I've owned the ship shop for 6 years now, and I was able to pick up U-Haul November of 2023. They've been trying to get into the Trophy Club area, and came along with this opportunity, and it's been very profitable. There, he's got it. Okay. So, why are we here? Basically, first off, I want to say thank you for allowing me this time here to present. Basically, why are we here? Well, Trophy Club resident Patricia Jane Kiefer has requested that the council enforce PD 13, and rightly so. If I'm in the wrong, we need to talk about it, and we need to do what we need to do to get it right. Basically, her reasoning is that the vans and trailers detract from the aesthetic beauty of the entrance to the city. Well, unlike if you go to a normal U-Haul and take a look at the way the vans and trailers are kind of just sitting all over the parking lot when you drive in, I take great care of making sure that the vans and trailers that I get are parked nicely, they're parked neatly, they're clean, and they're sitting in a way that they're not detracting from any beauty. They're sitting in an orderly fashion. When they come in, I make sure they're clean, they're organized, and they're not just sitting all over the parking lot to make it look like a junkyard. Further, I have helped out numerous Trophy Club residents that are coming in and out of the city with those vans and trailers. Basically, I opened up the ship shop for one reason and one reason only, to help out Trophy Club residents. That's why I opened it up. And I have numerous people in the city that come in and on a regular basis to use these vans and trailers to take their kids to college, to move around. I have a couple of businesses that use these on a regular basis. One guy comes in twice a week to use the van. He's a business person in the city. Basically, so what we're looking for, why we're here, is we're requesting a non-transferable variance. Okay, in other words, you're going to give me a variance that cannot be transferred if I sell the store to anyone else. Okay, so if I sell the store, it's done. The next person is not going to get U-Haul parking at all. It's going to be with me and me only as a single owner. And if they want U-Haul there, they're going to have to fight their own battle. It's going to be for me, for my business only. Okay, that's what I'm requesting. Okay. So like I said, numerous Trophy Club residents have benefited, including many, many college students. I'm sure you've probably heard stories yourself. Many families have moved in and out of the area, many local companies. But here's the main key here. U-Haul represents 30% of my business, okay? 30%, that's a big chunk since I picked it up. So what happens if you take away my U-Haul business? If you take away my U-Haul business, it's going to cost 30% of my revenue, 30% of my business. If you take that away, I'm not gonna be able to pay rent. I'm not gonna be able to pay salaries. This lady to my left is gonna lose her job, because I'm gonna have to close my store. I can't pay my rent anymore if I lose 30% of my business. So, basically, now, I want you to look at these numbers, and I did send them in one of my packages, and they are in there. Has anyone, and I'm sure some of you people have spouses that shop on Amazon, okay? And when they shop on Amazon, they buy maybe 3, 4 items, and they gotta return those items. Well, take a look at these numbers. This is from this year, that our store has taken from residents of Trophy Club and surrounding areas that we have returned to Amazon. UPS, 16,051 packages. Post Office, 7,019 packages. UPS through what's called a Pitney Bowes label, 275, DHL 59, FedEx Ground, 3,332, FedEx Express, 1,826, FedEx Smart Post, which, what a Smart Post is it can go, what happens on Smart Post is it goes through FedEx and they pass it off to the post office. Basically, it's a correlation between the two. So, what's the deal? I close my store. All those are gonna have to go someplace else. Anyone have an idea where the next shipping place is? Well, post office. Who wants to stand in line at the post office? Right now, it's a 2-hour wait. Anyone want to stand in line there for a 2-hour wait? Anyone gone there lately? They're real friendly over in Roanoke. So this is what's gonna happen if I close the store. All this stuff's gonna have to go somewhere else. I take it. She takes it every day. She enjoys taking it. Things are gonna change real fast if this is what happens. All right, so here's a picture, and I'm sure Ms. Kiefer's gonna show you pictures too, but here's a picture. Here's what normally, and I took this just the other day. Now, today, this is a little bit different, but here's what normally sits. On the left, we have one trailer, and that was I don't normally get open trailers. That happened to be a drop-off. It's already gone. And I've been assigned a 6x12 box trailer that is always there unless it's out. That is assigned to my store. And I don't normally get what we call a car hauler. That's not really a car hauler, it's just a 2-wheel hauler. I don't normally get those. That was a drop-off too. So when I get drop-offs, they come and they go. Okay, those are drop-offs. What you see on the right is what we call max load. In other words, I'm really loaded down on trailers because they're just simply drop-offs. And right now, I have one 5x8, that's what's sitting on the left, and I have 2 9x12s sitting there. I also have 2 15-foot trucks sitting there right now. Those 2 15-foot trucks were drop-offs. However, FedEx Ground has requested both of those trucks go in permanent service for them. So we're working on a contract with FedEx Ground to put both of those trucks in permanent service. FedEx Ground is really short on trucks right now. So we're working on putting both of those 15-foot trucks in FedEx Ground service. So we're working on getting that contract put together. So as soon as that happens, they'll be gone. And that'll be a very lucrative contract when we get that put together. So that's basically what it would look like. So we go here, signage. I've had the question of, well, were you gonna put a big sign up? The only sign that's up is the one above my door. I'm not putting any big sign up anywhere. There's gonna be no sign up that says we have U-Haul like you see in other places. The only sign is the one that's above the door, okay? What kind of other vans do I got? I got a 9-foot van and a 10-foot truck. Those are assigned to me on a permanent basis, okay? Now, FedEx has also asked for that 10-foot truck. So I may only have the 9-foot van sitting there. Now, you do also see a little 5x8 trailer sitting alongside that is owned by the ship shop. That little 5x8 silver trailer sitting there. That's one that's owned by ship shop. It's been there since the day I opened the store. That I rented out before I got U-Haul. Okay. All right, now here's what to think of when I tell you how it is a 30% of my income. Gross income from U-Haul in 2023 was 21,000. In '24, it's been 57,000. Now, in your individual packets, when you go down farther, you'll see my income and how that's 30% of my income. Okay? Landlord has approved U-Haul usage in most recent contract extension. That's also included in your packet. Okay? He signed off on it, and you'll see it in there. Also, I have 128 residents of Trophy Club that signed a petition against Ms. Kiefer's complaint. That's also in your packet, okay? So that is included. All righty, so everything else in your packet is financials. On it, I am this is a LLC. I'm not an individual owner. This is an LLC as far as the ship shop. So everything you have is financials on the ship shop, and you can go through it at your leisure. And so that's where I'm at, and, you know, I'm open to questions. I'm hoping that, you know, I can be here for a while longer. But it's all up to you, gentlemen. So if you've got any questions, or, you know, feel free to ask me.
Okay, we'll open up for questions here in a minute, because we have other people here that have signed up to speak.
Okay.
Either for or against, and we'll let them have their shot at this, and then that'll open up some more discussion, and then we'll get into our board discussion after we close the public hearing.
All right.
Okay, first person I have here that has signed up is Tanya Beard. Please state your name and your address, please.
Hello, I'm Tonya Beard, and I live at 215 Fresh Meadow Drive in Trophy Club. And thank you for allowing me to come speak tonight. I'm going to read it, if you don't mind. I'm not only a Trophy Club resident for 25 years, I'm also a real estate agent. And I'm here tonight in opposition of the proposed zoning change that would allow U-Haul trucks parking at the entrance of Trophy Club. I feel that such a change would harm the town's residential character and property values. The presence of large commercial trucks would detract from Trophy Club's appeal, potentially lowering the property values. As a real estate agent, I see importance of maintaining strong property values as crucial for attracting high-end buyers to our town. Since 60 to 65% of the town's income comes from real estate taxes, protecting these values is critical to the town's financial health. The town is known for its peaceful residential charm. The first impression we make on visitors and potential home buyers is vital. I feel a zoning change which would allow U-Haul trucks to be parked in our town's entrance alters the upscale image, giving the impression of a more industrial area. Allowing the zoning change could pave the way for other commercial ventures, further undermining the town's residential nature. The decision could have lasting consequences on the town's identity and quality of life for residents. A shift in the town's character would also negatively affect long-term property values and town revenue. I urge you to deny the zoning change to preserve the town's exclusive high-end residential character and ensure its financial stability. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next person signed up to speak is Patricia Kiefer. Ms. Kiefer? Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Pat Kiefer, resident of Trophy Club since 1984 on Fresh Meadow Drive. At my core, I'm a numbers-oriented person. That's why my first college degree was in physics. While my heart wants to say yes to Mr. Sanders, my head says no because of the numbers. The proposal with 10 dedicated 9-foot wide parking spaces would create a 90-foot wide display of orange, black, and white U-Haul industrial-style trucks that equates to a U-Haul sign. This would be 2 to 3 times the width of a standard billboard. Nothing about a U-Haul truck is subtle in terms of its signage. And if you were to look at the back of this room, which I think is somewhere between 40 and 50 feet, it would have 10 spaces, would be roughly twice the width of the room. I can think of nowhere else in our town that has permitted that level of signage. Real estate is all about numbers. I stand with Tonya Baird on objecting to having a display of U-Haul trucks on our front community curb. She is an expert at assessing the numerical value of real estate, and a U-Haul display would lower the values. Resident Terry Addington of Trophy Realtors is another real estate expert who could not be here this evening. Her office is part of the same PD13 area as the ship shop. Terry is opposing having the U-Haul truck rentals at the front community curb. I've printed her email, and Alicia has a copy. She lives on Trophy Club Drive, by the way. As I said, it's all about the numbers for me. TxDOT numbers tell us over 100,000 vehicles drive by our town every day. TxDOT also says we average an accident on 114 every other day. Between the accident and rush hour slowdowns, over 100,000 people have ample time to assess and judge the way our community looks every day. Numbers from our town's award-winning finance department for the 13th consecutive year says roughly 2/3 of our town's income depends on the taxable value of our homes. As Tonya said, it's critical to maximize our values of our homes with great curb appeal. The double to triple wide billboard-sized signage on U-Haul trucks and trailers downgrade the community to an industrial zone look. And this is why our real estate experts are standing squarely behind denying this request. 15 to 20% of town income is from our small businesses. As I said in my email to y'all yesterday, I'm highly empathetic with the challenges that small businesses face. But if I have to choose between helping 15 to 20% of our revenue sources at the clear expense of damaging 2/3 of our other revenue sources, I choose not to damage the value of our homes, fronting our town with as many as 10 trucks with eye-catching signs. A compromise could be to adopt the airport car rental approach, which is to have the paperwork completed at U-Haul, but have the trucks stored in an area that is not readily visible to passersby. I have no idea if parking behind the mud building would be a viable option, but I raise that because as you look at Google Maps in an overhead view, that's the closest vacant area that could contain the volume of trucks we're talking about. Bear with me a bit, as I'm about 60% of my normal function, or I'd be going faster. Numbers found by researching the property owner of Grace Development in Nashville, Tennessee, show that they have 43 commercial properties. It is interesting that they show on their website the address of the PD 13 tract as Sunset Drive versus the correct statement, which is State Highway 114. Sort of makes a person wonder if they've actually ever been here. On Tuesday, I noticed there were some storefront vacancies. If I were in Ship Shop shoes, I'd be asking my landlord what they're doing to drive some of those TxDOT 100,000 people that pass our town every day in vehicles towards my business. I have two other objections to the precedent that this amendment can set from these two perspectives. The amendment solely benefits a single business with no guarantee that the change in zoning would secure a good future for this business. If the commissioners elect to pursue the amendment, then I'd suggest that the zoning be limited to Mr. Sanders' ownership, which he himself suggested, and that it be walked back to original zoning if he sells or closes. The tough part about that is the precedent has been set. Second, the legally proper notification was given to folks within 200 feet of the property. But the fact is, the entire town is impacted by this decision. So perhaps in the future, notification should be given to the entire town so that we can all weigh in on the impact to the community curb appeal via the newsletter, town newsletter, or via the town Facebook page. Numbers for the Ship Shop. It's been in business, as Mr. Sanders said, for 5 years before it added the U-Haul business, which it started advertising in January of this year. They've knowingly violated the property zoning and signage ordinance for almost 12 months now, and by operating the U-Haul rentals. The town has been aware, as Matt said, since the spring, and this is the 4th month since I've been raising this issue. Zoning numbers. It's worth pointing out that there are nearly 6 or 60 kinds of allowed uses for this tract in the PD 13 zone. The Ship Shop tract does not allow any motorized vehicle storefronts. And when you rent U-Haul trucks, this would be a motorized vehicle storefront, in my opinion. The Ship Shop had a lot of options for pursuing additions to its business that do not violate the zoning. Google Map numbers show 25% more cars are parked in the first middle row of this shopping area. This is the most desirable parking because you can often pull through to park and not have to back out when you leave. This is the same middle section suggested to be dedicated to make the trucks less visible. It may, in my opinion, create a hardship for the patrons of other Track 1 businesses by taking the most desirable parking for the trucks. In addition, the photo I sent yesterday showed the parking is actually on higher ground. And because it's on higher ground, it actually makes it easier for the 100,000 passing vehicles and their passengers to see those trucks than it does if they park at the south end. Finally, I would ask for the same consideration that Mr. Sanders requested for his own residential neighborhood in Keller in 2013. He voiced his objection to Keller Town Council because of the negative impact on property values and because there were a lot of the same kind of proposed commercial operations in the immediate area. Numbers for nearby U-Hauls, and in fact, a shipping accessories shop in the Roanoke Center, which is right close to the police department, is 1.5 miles from the Ship Shop today. In addition to the Ship Shop U-Haul location, there are a total of 5 U-Haul opportunities to rent from in zip code 76262. In addition to those 5 truck rental opportunities, you can rent trucks from Home Depot, Enterprise, Penske, and Lowe's. Let me be clear. We are residents who buy everything we can in Trophy Club because the businesses pay the town sales taxes and property taxes. Roanoke is second choice because those businesses will still pay Northwest ISD taxes. Amazon is my third choice because it's the #1 sales tax revenue source to our town. Thank you, Brandon, for that one. And South Lake is very lovely, but you know what? We get no property taxes and we get no sales tax revenue, so I try and keep my shopping locally. In closing, a partial quote in Mr. Sanders' protest against industrial development at the front of his neighborhood. He said, "Please do not ruin our neighborhood by approving the permit request." I have the same request, but I would say it a bit differently. Please do not damage our town budget by lowering our property values by putting a double to triple-sized billboard industrial-looking set of trucks on the front face of our highly regarded residential neighborhood. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next person, is it Kathy Ford? Come on up, Kathy. State your name and address, please.
Kathy Ford, 400 Hilltop in Trophy Club. I am short of words, so this won't take long. But I am here to voice opposition to this change of ordinance. And I think that people, including myself, we've lived here since 2003, and my oldest son has recently moved back and is raising his family here. And I think that we choose this town because it is a quiet, residential area. It's safe. There's not a lot of in and out here. If you come to Trophy Club, you're coming to Trophy Club specifically for a reason. And that's very much why we chose this area, and that's why my son, who's now raising his family, has moved back. So I would like to say I am in opposition to this ordinance change, and I would also request an explanation either from the board or from Mr. Cox or from Mr. Brandon on why this ordinance has been allowed to be broken for so long, over a year at this point, or at least almost a year. I think over a year, but according to publications, at least a year. And so that, if you could answer that either tonight or in a post-communication form, an email or a phone call, to help me to understand why this ordinance has been overlooked for this amount of time. Thank you, and also thank you for volunteering your hours of your life to serve the town of Trophy Club.
Thank you. The fourth speaker we have here is Jennifer Windmill. State your name and address, please.
Jennifer Windmill. I'm at 7 Overhill. I've been in Trophy Club 28 years. I served 28 years ago. I started serving on many of the committees like y'all, and we set up all of these precedents so that Trophy Club is the unique city that it is today. And I think we did a really good job back then. And I really, really am upset that we're thinking about dismantling what makes our town unique. We have worked very hard to make our town unique. It's looking like a flea market up there. He says he doesn't put signs out. He puts those great big U-Haul flags out. I have been questioning this U-Haul since the police chief was filling in to be as city manager. And I kept getting blown off and blown off. This is ridiculous. We do not want a U-Haul at our front entrance. Please do not do this. We are a very unique city, and I appreciate his problems, but obviously he went to Keller City Council and he didn't want his residents disturbed with this kind of a thing. Also, he says there are no other shops if his shop goes under. There's one right by Taco Bell. There's one right by Walmart. There are other ship shops. I go to the one by Taco Bell all the time. The people in there are very nice. And, you know, we just need to stop doing this. And if he gets, you need to ask him these questions. If he gets drop-offs, say he gets a drop-off of 10 or 20 vehicles, how long are they going to sit out there? Are we going to allow it to go on? Obviously, we've blown this ordinance off for a year and a half. Is he going to be allowed to keep all of these things? I mean, this is horrible. Please do not keep dismantling what we have built in this town. For years, there were many of us that had a vision of what we wanted Trophy Club. And I think the reason this is such a great town is because we had those visions and we brought those things to fruition. Please do not be dismantling everything that we've worked many, many years ago to make sure that our town got to where it is today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have another one here, number 5 would be Jenny Fox. Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Jenny Fox. I'm at 2753 Enfield Drive, and I wanted to state that I'm also in opposition of allowing a U-Haul trailer. I actually enter usually more on Trophy Lake because I'm back in the Highlands, but because of traffic and I get gas at 7-Eleven, I am on the service road all the time, and all I see are U-Haul trailers. He said he doesn't need a sign because his advertising are the trucks themselves. So that's not an argument about not having a sign. You're short, she was kind of saying, or somebody else was, the road is lower there. So literally, if I look up into the rest of that shopping center, I can't see any other business fronts. That sucks for them, because now those trucks are blocking all of their advertisement of their actual storefront signs. So that's a major issue to be considered. You know, I empathize with small business, but I also question, number one, I don't like that you went ahead and got a U-Haul contract without having permission, just like Jennifer said. If you didn't have permission to be running this operation for the zoning, you know, shame on you for doing that from a business. I would get all my ducks in a row. Number two, if that's 30% of your revenue now within 1 year, and you're telling us that a variance would mean, you know, it'd only be for you and not sellable, well, any other buyer is going to look at your balance sheet, and do you think they're going to buy your business saying 30% of it's not able to be transferred to them? That's not going to happen. So I'm thinking if you allow some kind of variance just from a business standpoint, that's going to be rolled over to a new buyer. That's just how business works. So that's just money talking. So that's something to be considered as well. It's just really disappointing. I think that we need to emulate Entrada and Westlake, our neighbor right across the street. Would they allow a U-Haul trailer in there? No. They have high-end things. So, you know, like everyone has done, I'm grateful for the people before us. I've been here since 2012. I've started a family here. I continue. I travel. I love coming back, you guys, to Trophy Club for so many reasons. I don't want to come back from the airport and see a U-Haul trailer, all the trucks in a row, right in the entrance to our town. It doesn't, when you're coming from South Lake and West Lake, this does not fit the vibe that we're trying to do around here as a family town. So I beg of you to please consider this. Again, we all empathize small business, but frankly, I take my packages elsewhere. It's, you know, like she was saying, there's many other places to go for packages. You offer many other options for business, but not U-Haul trailers. So thank you very much. Appreciate your consideration and your time volunteering here in the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to close the public hearing at 6, unless anyone else wants to speak. No other speakers here. We're going to close the public hearing at 6:49 p.m. Okay, now, questions, commissioners? Paul?
Yeah, does anyone else got any? I got quite a few.
I have a few. Most of these I should likely know, but I'm going to ask anyway, again. So Mr. Sanders, how many trucks do you own permanently? How many will
Do I own?
Well, you mentioned that there are some that will likely always be there that you will rent out. And then, because there's a mix of the amount of spaces that'll be impacted, right? It'll be what you rent out plus what anybody returns.
Okay, permanent vehicles or whatever, there's one 9-foot van, one 10-foot truck, and that I'm permanently assigned, and one 6 by 12-foot trailer.
So that's,
Those are the 3 vehicles I'm permanently assigned.
so that's a fixed 3 spaces.
Those are fixed, okay? Anything else that comes in is what we call transit vehicles, based on what comes in from customers dropping off or whatever. It could be, like I said, I had 2 15-foot trucks dropped off this last week. Those are apparently going out to FedEx. And by the way, tonight in the lot was sitting a 20-foot truck. I went over and looked at it and said, where did this thing come from? It's not even on my records as a drop-off. Turns out it's a customer that is not one of my customers, but it's someone who's moving into Trophy Club. And they came into the parking lot and they were eating dinner at Vinnie's. So I don't know where, it's someone who's moving into Trophy Club and their 20-foot truck is in the lot and they're not even dropping it off to me, but they're eating at Vinnie's. So that is someone who's coming into Trophy Club with their U-Haul and they're eating at one of our local restaurants. But so anything else that comes in, those are the vehicles that are assigned to me. I'm asking for the extra parking spots for these drop-off vehicles, but they go, like when I get 5x8s, 5x8s are very, very popular. It's a single axle trailer. They're very popular with the college students and people who are moving small loads like a single bedroom apartment. They go almost immediately. They go real fast.
Thank you for that. My concern is the exposure. We have 3 spots. We know, so anytime I drive past, and I see 10 vehicles, I know I can theoretically say 3 of those are permanent vehicles. How can we control, because if your client base, and I love you all, I don't like I'm not crazy about the service all the time, but I like the concept. If I'm online and I know I can drop a truck off at your place, how do you, and I don't think there's an answer for this, but how do you control somebody driving by and seeing 30 trucks in the lot? I mean, I don't think the dealers have a mechanism built in to control the number of drop-offs that they have.
No, U-Haul does.
Not
U-Haul.
U-Haul, but I'm saying, like, your.
No, I get notifications on my phone. Well, Gio has my phone right now. I get notifications on my phone that a drop-off is available or someone's going to be dropping off a vehicle within 2 days. And I can literally tell U-Haul that I don't have space, send it somewhere else.
Okay, what would drive that? What would drive you saying I don't have space?
If I got too many on the lot.
What is too many? How do we get to too many? I'm
But-
trying to
but-
get an idea of exposure, like how many,
But what we as a group decide is too many. If you tell me I can only have 4 trailers, then if I got 4 there and another one's coming in, I will tell U-Haul, I can't handle that one, send it to somewhere else. It's that simple. I can just simply say, U-Haul, do not drop this one here, send it to another dealer.
because I see 9 spaces on the packet that we got that are outlined. What do those represent? Is that where you have, that's where you're either on, so 1 5-space grouping, 1 4-space?
Yeah,
Your
it's.
stuff is either in one of those?
Yeah, there's one, what U-Haul requests of me is the vans and the 10-foot, they want straight out from the, excuse me, they want straight out from the building because they want eyes on those vehicles because of the way it is. The trailers can be way over to the side because for 2 reasons. One, if they're parked over in the front, there's no way in the world anyone can hook up to it and move away when the restaurants are full. It's too busy. You cannot hook up to a trailer there and pull away. It's impossible. You'd end up being congested with the other customers, with the restaurants, and I don't want to put anyone inconvenienced, so we move them way down to the other end where there's absolutely no traffic and no parking problems. You can hook up to it and pull away, and no one gets upset. You're not in the way of a customer for a restaurant or anything else. You can hook up to it and pull away. So that's why we circled that area over there to park that trailer on that far end. Incidentally, which is not in there, we have talked to every store owner, not employees, but the actual store owners, about do they have any problems with U-Haul being in there, and none of them, they're all fine. They have no problems with it, especially 7-Eleven, because they like the fact that the U-Hauls come in and gas up at their facility when they come back in.
Thank you. That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else?
Oh, yeah. This one has to do more with the ordinances of the town. PD 13 refers to Section 35 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. I couldn't find a comprehensive zoning ordinance, but I could find the zoning section in the Code of Ordinance. Has there been a change and that zoning section replaces the Code of Compliance? No? Okay. Well, then it's in two places, and I haven't only looked at one. But that Code of Ordinances is Section 14.02.052, defines accessory use as the following. It says, accessory use, a use subordinate to and incidental to the principal use. All right, so there's two key words there, right? Subordinate and incidental. Subordinate means like relating to, secondary, dependent on. All right, so that would say that the U-Haul business is dependent on the shipping, box shipping. The second term, incidental, means occurring merely by chance. It's without intention or calculation. Clearly, the U-Haul business does not meet the fact that it's incidental. So I think we have an issue right off the top. This is not an accessory use. This is a second business. This is a new standalone business operating out of Ship Shop. Now, we need to address that, or down the road, probably going to be back here doing the same thing again. I think that's the biggest issue that we face. And, it affects the Ship Shop, and it affects the town. I do have some other questions that go along with it, and I'd like to, we might come back to that one later. Now, as I understand it, the Ship Shop's been located in Trophy Club for 6 years. Is that true?
Yes.
And I think I understand that the U-Haul business, you've been a U-Haul authorized dealer for a year. Is that true?
Yeah, since
All right.
November of 23.
All right, so
Now,
the timing that's been talked about.
one of the things about U-Haul is U-Haul is assigned to me by U-Haul. If I quit, U-Haul, because that question came up with one of the other residents that came up and talked about U-Haul going to, if I sell the store or whatever, U-Haul franchise is assigned to me, and U-Haul will not transfer that business to a new owner at all. That new owner, if they want U-Haul, they have to completely re-franchise. It's up to U-Haul to accept that owner or not, but they will not transfer that franchise to a new owner.
Okay, So the fact is, still, you've been a U-Haul authorized dealer for 1 year
Correct.
in violation of PD 13.
No argument.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the need to comply all of a sudden at this time came about because of some negative feedback. Is that true?
That and my own lack of knowledge of PD 13.
Okay. And I think you've answered the reason for separate van and trailer parking with the hookup hitch thing. And I think you've answered what does in-transit mean. The question is, how long does an in-transit vehicle stay there?
Sometimes it goes out the same day it comes in.
And sometimes,
Might stay 2-3 days. It just depends on customer need.
the next thing is that I'd like to talk about a little bit is the 20 and 26-foot trucks. Obviously, the parking spots are not large enough for them, and so they have to be parked differently somehow, taking up, a number of spots. How, in fact, do you plan on accommodating those?
If a 20 or 26-foot truck comes in, it would come in by transit only. I'm not, U-Haul literally will not give me one of those at all because of the parking lot size. The only way I get one of those is by transit, and if it comes in, I put it way down on the other side, way down by the gun store down on that end, and it would take up basically 2 spots, but it normally when those come in, they're already assigned out. They're gone. The last time I had one come in, it went out the same day. It was assigned out the same day.
Is it possible?
I've had one 26-foot truck the whole time I've been there.
Is it possible for you to decline these 20 or 26-foot transits?
It is possible, yes,
Would you do it?
if that's what it takes to get this approved, yes.
Okay. I also had a question about maneuvering those trucks in the parking lot. As Pat, Pat used a reference of the room as far as size goes. I use a reference of our garage. Our garage is 25 foot 3 inches. At least that's what the plan says. I didn't go out there and measure it. 26-foot trucks, not much, is even bigger than that. And I'm looking at that parking lot and a 26-foot vehicle with a turning radius that can't be too good. I don't know how they're going to maneuver in that lot.
Maneuvering a big vehicle is not a problem. When I was younger, I used to drive over-the-road tractor trailer. I could drive a big truck without any problem, so that's not a problem. When I load up a vehicle, I bring it over to the customer and, help them get it in and out. I don't just simply say, Mr. Customer, there's your vehicle, go get it. I hook it up for them, or I unhook it, I hook it up for them, I make sure it's completely ready to go. I do everything for them. Some U-Hauls, when you go in there, they tell you, there's your vehicle, go hook it up, do whatever. I make sure that everything is completely ready, and I bring it over to them and get it all set up, ready to go. If you could go online and read my U-Haul reviews, you'd see that. I make sure everything is totally ready for that customer when they get it. I bring it over to them, I give it to them, so that they don't have to maneuver around vehicles. So I understand what you're saying, but I make sure that they're not going to hit anybody when they try to get their vehicles out of there.
Okay, you mentioned that you prepare, what is it, 3? You have 3 vehicles that are like permanent?
Yeah, they're assigned to my
you, yes.
location.
Where are those vehicles cleaned, prepared for the next rental, and maintained?
I do minor cleaning inside as far as the windows and the interior, if they need to be washed, U-Haul literally comes out and does a washing on them.
In that lot.
No, they'll take them back to their facility. They'll take them, but the main facility in this area is Grapevine.
Yes.
That's the main facility where they do oil changes and maintenance on them.
Okay. All right, this is the last one. This has to do with back to the PD. What enforcement measures are in place? And what other measures are needed so this doesn't happen again? And, I don't know if you guys got answers or not, but that's really on my mind.
Well, we have the ability to put code enforcement. We have ability to give a warning, give a citation, and we have that ability to do that.
Okay. And what initiates that process?
It's either the citizens being eyes and ears for us or our own code enforcement out and about.
That doesn't seem to work too well.
On this particular scenario or
Well,
just
I
all
could
throughout
think of a
town?
few others, but we're not talking about that. So, yeah, on this scenario.
Again, on this scenario, when we reached out to him, that you've got basically two options, is shut it down or walk him through and help him with the process to come to y'all, come to council for that. So, and yes, in a perfect world, this would have been done a lot sooner. So,
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Terry?
Thank you. So a couple of things. In reading the same zoning ordinance, I have a different take. I do find that the U-Haul business is an accessory use of your shop. You derive 30% of your revenues from it, which means 70% comes from his mainline business. So this is just an adjunct to what you do. Yeah, you're in violation of PD 13, but PD 13 is also silent on a lot of other uses. I too live here for a long time. I happen to come in on TrophyClub Drive. I look around and I think we are nothing but landscapers in the morning and the evening. Because around 7-Eleven, that's all there is. I mean, that's just beside the point. And so I do see that
I'm
this.
not sure that's beside the point.
Well, may not be, but we'll just let that go. But I do find it's an accessory and incidental use. However, addressing the ordinance as it stands is not the end game that we as a town would want. My feeling is this should be approached as a special use permit, because that gives the council the ability to specify the number of vehicles that are on that lot at any time, where those vehicles are at any one point in time, screening, signage, anything else that is part and parcel to the operation of the U-Haul business is typically addressed in a sub. If we opened the ordinance to just say this is what we do, we run the risk of having Ryder, U-Haul, another competing business try to come in if one of our restaurants goes open, that they pull in and they use the precedent as the word was said. However, with the SUP, that is impossible, because you can stipulate too that it will not be a primary driven business. So it's an ancillary use, accessory use, incidental use. It can be worded as such in the SUP, which lets us control as a town the number of U-Haul units that are there at any one time. In looking at the parking lot, I too have driven around. The parking lot down near K5 is almost empty all of the time. So is there a better way to park them? Possibly. Is there a safer way to park them? Absolutely. That you get them out of the mix at Christina's, fishing knife or whatever that is. But it just makes it a little bit more depth, and it gives us as a council and a commission a way to control the use to hopefully mitigate the concerns of the citizens while at the same time accommodating a business need. I don't go to Roanoke. I don't go to Grapevine to rent anything. I would much rather do it here. So I drop my car off in the parking lot, I pick it up and I go and I come back and I drop it right here. I don't want to go to Roanoke and drop it off because guess what? They're closed. I don't want to go to Grapevine for the reasons it's too far away. So I like the reasonableness and the accommodation of having it here. I don't use it all the time. But that's not to say that there isn't a necessary use for this here in town, as your numbers indicate. There are people in the town using it. You are deriving a pretty significant source of income from it. But again, it's not your primary driver of your business, is your financials indicate. So my just statement in general is, you know, the amendment of the ordinance is not the end all. It doesn't end tonight with any amendment of the ordinance. My feel is that this should be more specifically addressed under the special use permit, which is a SUP, which lets boundaries be drawn by our town council, town manager, community development director, to really get in and with specificity answer all of the questions that have been answered today about concerns. You know, especially around how do we accommodate our businesses and our citizenry in general. You know, we don't want to put an onus or a burden on either one. And we understand that U-Haul trucks are orange and silver. You can't miss them. But is there something that we can do as a town that enables the use of this service, which we all benefit from, in a way that is not demonstrably deficient in our overall concept plan, and it doesn't go to disturbing the aesthetics of what we have as a community. So that's my statement, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got some things.
Okay. Sean.
So, and I don't remember who mentioned this, but someone mentioned that you've put out flags in the past. Is that true?
In the past, I don't have them anymore.
Okay. How often did you put those flags out and why did you stop?
When I first started with U-Haul, took them down. It didn't do what I wanted it to do. Took them down.
Okay.
Several months ago, I took them down.
Okay. So, and then there's some other questions about spaces and traffic. What's the highest use you've ever seen? How many trucks have you had at the highest peak at one time in the past year?
Two 10-foot and, yeah, two 10-foot and probably, yeah, two 10-foot and one 15 is the highest I've had.
So 3 trucks is the most
Yeah.
you've ever had.
Yeah, of the bigger, yeah.
Okay. Have you had any incidents based on these vehicles being parked in that parking lot? Have you had any crime, anything for TCPD to be called out? No
No
parking
crime, no,
violations, nothing like that happened?
no, nothing.
Okay. So I mean, what I'm hearing from a lot of the citizens is this the highest and best use of this space, right? So when we look at Trophy Club and when we look specifically at the shopping center, is this the best way that this space can be used? And it looks like you've been doing it kind of under the table for the past year, and we're just now addressing it now. So I don't know if I have an answer if this is the highest and best use for this, but I want us to consider that. I think that's all I had.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just a couple comments, but first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here tonight to entertain some of the questions and the interaction. Obviously, this is an important topic, not only to us, but everybody that's in the room for various different reasons. And Trophy Club has proven itself, I think, over many years as being a very business-friendly environment in town. There's even recently, the Economic Development Corporation has a Thrive grant that they've been working with the town to provide funding towards our local businesses on, which is really fantastic, right? To reinforce something that makes sense for the town, right? And makes sense for whatever the plan development is for a particular, enterprise and organization and business. What I share in a lot of the concerns that have been brought up today by kind of the fellow commissioners, but then really just the information that you provided, there were some things that just disconnected to me based upon some of what I heard. And so if you could help me understand, so there's the ship shop itself that's been in business for about 6 years now. Just in the last year, you all have decided to start offering this additional service to your customers.
Correct.
In the form of being able to rent out these vehicles, trailers, and things like that.
Correct.
But you said you needed a franchise through U-Haul to be able to offer this, correct?
U-Haul approached me,
Okay,
and the franchise doesn't cost anything. They approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in handling U-Haul at my store.
sure.
The subject did come up, I think Ms. Kiefer brought it up, about going to Roanoke to get a U-Haul. That individual there has basically one van on the lot. He will not handle trailers at all. He refuses to handle trailers. He handles one van, so it's a very limited service up there.
And so, Mr. Sanders, really what I'm getting at as far as just kind of the dialogue here is the interest in use that, and you provided an ultimate report here that kind of shows, being very transparent with us, which I'll also appreciate
Yes.
that, in terms of profit, sales, by different categories y'all are working with. What's interesting is here earlier in kind of this slide deck, you present to us, here's what my gross earnings have been from '23, and then also year-to-date for '24.
Correct.
But here in the earnings, it says under the U-Haul category, $0 for sales and $0 for
There,
profit.
it's not put on the ultimate report.
Okay.
It's separate.
So where I'm going with this is, let's say over time, your shipping business started to decline. Wouldn't wish that upon you, but I'm just saying hypothetically. And you become more and more reliant on the U-Haul business. Then I don't think that actually is what the intent is of PD 13 and what the customer base is there and the business is there. So you'd almost have kind of maybe a flip-flop from something that you heard from some of our real estate experts kind of describing. Typically we see light industrial warehouse. That's where these types of trucks and different types of services are offered in terms of being a good fit in the right space or the right type of amenity or right type of service offering. So I don't really have any questions for you. I'm just sharing with you some observations that kind of tie in with some of the materials that have been presented tonight and some of what we've heard from folks that are here. So again, just want to say thank you very much.
I see where you're going with that statement of if my shipping business declines and I start relying on the U-Haul, would I be inclined to get more U-Haul in? And I'm going to answer that question right now. You're going to put a limit on the amount of vehicles, and I will not go over that limit. I don't care how much decline my shipping business does. If you put a limit, that's it. I'm not going to go over it. Okay? As a businessman, I will stick to what you tell me to stick to. Okay?
Any other questions?
I do actually have one more, and this is more for probably for Matt and Brandon or Matt here. Is there a reason we don't define trailers in here? So, or more specific of what a trailer is?
It just was never, the definition just was never installed in there.
Okay. My concern would be with, it just says trailers designed to be towed by vehicles. And so my concern there is that's a pretty broad definition.
It
And
is.
it could be a tractor trailer that, if he wants to slap U-Haul on the back of it. and
So
park
we,
it.
we specifically put just a very broad definition because we're going to allow P&Z and council to hone that in. So again, we just kind of took from about 8 different cities, compiled, and, that's a suggested definition.
Okay. Do we know what's the max size of trailer that U-Haul offers as
6
far as
by-
open air or anything?
6 by 12 on enclosed, and they offer a 14-foot car hauler, which I don't ever get in.
Anything else?
I got just one last question.
Sure.
The, as a U-Haul franchisee, is there, and I don't know that business, but is there a lower bound of what a viable U-Haul franchise would be? Like, if we set a limit too low, and I'm speaking hypothetically to everybody in the crowd, but let's say that the, we advised a number of vehicles. Okay, you've got your 3 that are permanently assigned. You can only have one more. I'm speaking hypothetically. You can only have one more vehicle. What are the odds that then U-Haul takes issue with that? Again, I don't know that business, but is there a point of viability around a U-Haul? Can you have one? You mentioned the gentleman in Roanoke had one van. What is U-Haul mandate as a franchisee, or what are their guidelines or protocols around?
You can put the limit at wherever you want.
Okay.
As you lower the limit, you obviously lower my ability to make income off it. But you can put the limit wherever you want. As you put the limit, you basically stop U-Haul from sending drop-offs in and everything else. And as you do that, right now I'm an A-rated dealer. As an A-rated dealer, they will send me drop-offs or in. If I come off of an A-rated dealer, then they won't send me drop-offs in. I only have what's on the lot, which is what I started out as. And if I don't rent those vehicles out, then they decide, well, we don't need you because you're not renting the vehicles out. So I stand to lose that way too.
Is that it? I have just a couple of questions, not questions, really. I understand what we're talking about here, but a couple of observations also. I think Commissioner Kesterson summed the whole concept up pretty well. I think this is not, every time you come to me and say, I want to amend a PD, I have a real problem, always, as you know. This is not an amend the PD thing. This is a special use permit consideration, which means a different application for you and another conversation about the whole thing too, before we can recommend, I think, before this board can recommend something to city council. That's just my thought. You guys may differ with me, but I just think that's the correct approach to handle this situation. Then it gets rid of all the with us forever. If you die, it dies. You know, it covers a lot of. It also helps define, at least take another look at the concerns the citizens have brought up. Also, you know, business being a friendly business town is really important. I know to the council and always has been to this board, and that comes down as a number one consideration. A lot of these things that come up, and a lot of these things have come up recently in trying to increase the business. Like there's a large sign getting ready to go up out front of the town center out there on the freeway, and there were a lot of people who didn't want that sign, but there were a lot more people who wanted to drive more business to including the residents and the tenants that frequent those and the tenants in the center who want more, and more support from the people on 114 who are going 5 miles an hour most of the time now. So for all you people who've been here for 25 years and stuff, I think, this road out here and the construction out here has done far worse for the values of this place that going up, but also it hasn't hurt us from a standpoint of having one, U-Haul truck out front of us. And someone brought up the 7-Eleven up there. And you think that people driving here, I'm gonna live here, and there's 18 trucks. You couldn't get a fire truck through there at lunchtime for about a 3-hour period. And I don't know if that's a violation of PD 13, because it's in PD 13 also, the 7-Eleven. It may not be, but it sure is a mess looking, isn't it, out there? People sitting around on stools eating lunch and stuff. It's great. Well, I'm not sure. That's my question, is having 18 trailers out there with 47 people. The other thing I find out about 7-Eleven is when I go in 7-Eleven, there are 18 trucks out front. There's not a single person in that store. Where are those people? They run a gambling operation?
They're out
or
back at
something?
the picnic table.
They're out back picnic table.
That's where I have to park,
Yeah.
because I can't park out front.
Right, it's something. But I think, at least from my standpoint, we need to basically deny this particular application for a PD amendment and ask you to go back and resubmit for a special use permit to further delve into the nuances of this problem.
Can I-
Does anyone disagree? I mean, tell me what you think.
No,
Well,
I
that's
don't,
very
I don't disagree.
I kind of think that's what
I
you're
don't
saying.
disagree, but it's the mechanics. I think in order to consider an SUP, there has to be an amendment to the PD that allows that SUP to address the concern that is going to be
Is that
brought
correct?
up to the town
So
council.
procedurally, we have an issue.
So it's a procedural. It's
yeah.
it's not an affirmation or a denial. It's a movement to putting guardrails up for this particular issue. And I think that lays with the council. And so in order to give them the tool that they need to address it, we have to advance it to them in such a way as they can then approach it. Either
Is
putting the
is that
limits
your,
for, against, whatever.
Yeah, so, he didn't have the ability to fill out an application for an SUP and bring that to you. So-
because of the issue,
That's
the
correct.
ordinance?
So you've got to have the amendment to, with the accessory use. You've got to have that.
So that's a procedural issue that I was mentioning.
Yeah, you're right.
Is that if we open the door by amending PD 13, then the cat's out. But if you refer it forward with specific boundaries in place, like addressing the number of vehicles, where they park.
Are you going to?
All of those
Are you going
things.
to articulate this motion?
We will try to articulate this.
complicated one.
I have a feeling Dean or somebody else will thrash me outside of it, you know, if I go astray. But, yeah, I'll give it a shot, is to fart.
And if I can, just real quick, just to clarify, with that, it does require for an SUP to be considered, there has to be authorization to consider an SUP, which would be done underneath the amendment to the ordinance, right? And so tonight, one thing you can consider is amending the PD to allow this use, right, this accessory use by special use permit that would allow you to be, and then from there, that would kickstart the process with Mr. Sanders to say, now you need to submit an SUP, right, to be able to go along with that request. And I know it seems like it's a lot of steps, but that's just kind of mechanically how you would do it. You have to have the authorizing ordinance that would allow you to be able to submit and approve an SUP. So so essentially what it would do is it would say, okay, within the ordinance, it would state that this defining definition of trailers and vehicles for rent can be sought after by way of an SUP, with the details to be then outlined in the specific use permit process on that, so.
Right, and so that gets it into the more robust look that addresses the concerns everybody
Yeah.
has. And it takes both sides into account. So it's not a free-for-all that it's done. It's just pushing it
Yeah,
and putting it in the
it's not
right
yea or nay,
process.
which is
Right,
the problem we have a lot of times.
right. So that's just my thought on it.
Questions, thoughts,
Well,
discussion?
yeah. I was thinking along the same lines that we don't approve or deny right now. But I don't know that, but it sounds to me like an SUP is sort of a approval in that it's going to come back and it'll have these conditions, which we have right now. We have conditions. But I don't know that these conditions are enough. It does
That's
not
the
address
concern.
enforcement. And so I'm wondering if we take that procedural approach, are we actually, in a way, approving?
So the SUP process opens it up to address the very things that you want to address. If you want to talk enforcement, if you want to talk anything that's on the table, it's installed inside the SUP requirements. And what they can also do is say that this accessory use is only applicable to ship shop only. It cannot be transferred, it cannot be given to Ryder, it cannot be given to Penske, it can't be given to anybody else, and it expires when ship shop expires, or by willful termination of their contract with U-Haul. So the SUP is the wide body that you stuff all of these things that you want to happen inside. And it is the veritable playbook for the way that that operation is handled here in the town.
What if you don't want the U-Haul period?
So, and related to that
And
point.
the SUP allows it.
I think the accessory use, and Commissioner Jablonski brought this up earlier, and it kind of tying back into, is this truly an accessory use by definition? If we can kind of peel that onion back a little bit more, and the research that you all were doing, so Matt, I know you and others were looking into what other towns have related to trailers or parking of this kind, accessory use, things like that. I may be trying to kind of pull it up a little bit higher level. Do we know of other examples of shipping-related businesses that are offering this sort of service? So I'm kind of curious, so for instance, FedEx or other types of shipping centers, are they also offering this type of service where you can rent out a vehicle or a truck and trailer kind of operation? That to me is, there's kind of a standard protocol of this type of business performs this sort of function. Are others that are in this line of business also performing that function? I'm not an expert in this area, but I've been to FedEx and other types of shipping centers before. I don't think I've seen that. So I'm hung up on right now on the point that I think Commissioner Jablonski, was saying
Call me Paul.
earlier. Thank you. On, is this truly an accessory use that we're discussing? I'm not there yet. So I think we're getting a little bit too far ahead, just where I am in my seat on, should we even be going down the path of having a conversation to amend the PD and go down this path of a special use permit? I'm not there yet.
So where I am is, I don't want to kick the can down the road. We've already had this issue going on for a year. The town is at a point where, what do we do? Do we start issuing tickets? Do we start making it pull off? And so the more we let it lay, in my opinion, we're just kicking the can down the road. We're going to have to revisit this at some point in some form or fashion. And so I think in order to do it in the benefit of the town and the business in general, is that we advance it toward the SUP process, and then we can take it up from there. And if you choose not to vote, well, then you're in denial of the SUP. So that basically kills the entity as it comes forward.
What he's saying is if the amendment's done,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee an SUP will
That's right.
be issued.
It's,
You know,
but that's the proper courtroom to hear
That's
the
not my
evidence.
perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a de facto admission of approval to say, take this to an SUP. I go through SUPs often. I fail on some of them, and some of them we get. Some of them we don't like the way we have to live with the outcome, but that's just part of doing business. And so that's the
So
appropriate
isn't that
venue.
kicking the can down the road?
No, because
not?
you'll address it one time and one time only under the SUP. So, and if the SUP is denied, it's denied. That's it. We're done. We don't have to look at
And the road
amending
ends.
PD 13. We don't have to open it up to other potential abuses or uses, is depending on your perspective. But we have the ability to do and craft the best outcome for all people that are concerned.
Okay,
So-
don't we have that ability without, with somehow taking no action today and asking for a redo?
No, we could recommend for denial, and we could recommend for denial of this amendment. And then it doesn't even get to the stage where we're discussing the SUP.
Correct, yeah, you really, it's kind of like, think of it almost like a two-stage process here, right? Question one is, do you want to allow for consideration of an SUP for this purpose? And then the second point under this scenario here would be then consideration of the SUP, right? If you don't want to consider the SUPs for this purpose, then you would deny the ordinance, right? If you do want to consider the SUPs, then you would approve on it. As mentioned, it's not a guarantee of approval at an SUP, but it indicates you're open to the consideration of the SUP for this purpose. on it, and then you would move on to question 2 on that one. Okay.
And I just think is if you go down the road of being business friendly, a complete abject denial of the change as it stands right now is a hardship that's put on the business. I mean, you can see from the numbers that it is utilized. It's not just something that sits there and gathers dust. It's being utilized by a lot of people here in the town. And so I think that's a consideration that we need to go more in depth. If we do this, how do we define it? How do we balance everybody's needs in the town to still make it available, but in a much better fashion? Because right now you see the two disjointed places of the equipment. So just in your mind, if you thought you take 4 spaces for the middle section down by K5, you have everything centered right there. It's away from Christina's and all of the other restaurant traffic. K5 has very few cars in there. They also have they have a wall at the west end. What if that was the way? But all of those things you would address in the SUP is about number of vehicles, location, and all of the things that you want addressed.
Okay, so if we go with the SUP, this does not go to council until we approve an SUP. Is that correct?
That would be my recommendation, is that you would kind of wait for the SUP to catch up to this item at that point, right? You would recommend an ordinance change and then recommend the SUP with that. And why is that? Well, because the council's natural question will be, what are we considering here, right? And they would like to see it probably all together at one time to consider whether or not the ordinance makes sense or the ordinance doesn't make sense for that part of it. So we would likely just slow up the ordinance until you approve until you consider and act on the SUP.
We would, I missed that part about the ordinance. Well,
Sure. That the ordinance would wait until the SUP received a recommendation from this body in order to move forward to the council.
Yeah, it's back in our lap. But
Okay.
we have the tools to address it now in the proper way.
well, that's pretty much what I was hoping, yeah.
Can I take this a step back? And I kind of hate to take it a step back here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. Someone brought it up. Can we park these somewhere else? Is there a way for you to operate your U-Haul franchise? Because it sounds like a lot of your stuff comes through online anyway. It's not a lot of drive-by traffic seeing like, oh, there's a U-Haul, I'm going to stop there. It sounds like there's a online system that's driving traffic to your store, right? And they're going to drop trucks off or whatever. Can we put them somewhere else?
There's no place else to put them. I can't put them behind the building, that's all fire lane.
Yeah.
So I can't put them there. And when someone comes in, I go out and get the vehicle, get it ready. So and sometimes I'm the only one at the store. I can't leave the store to go get it someplace else. That's not a
And so
possibility.
I think Ms. Kiefer brought up the point of possibly parking it over by the mud.
How-
Somebody brought up parking it by the mud. Well, in my mind, if you park it by the mud, that's not property that you have a leasehold on.
No,
And so insurance would naturally gravitate toward the town if anything happened to that while it was on town property
And-
or mud property. And, typical with the mud, I don't think you have the ability to redress grievances with the mud governmentally as far as fines, suits, whatever else that you want to bring. And so I think it just adds things into the mix that are unnecessary.
Yeah, and I'm not
I don't want to come to
suggesting.
your store. No, I hear your point, as you go. But that was some of my concerns. If you put it over by the mud, you're taking and putting an extra burden on the town from a potential liability standpoint if something were to happen to the vehicles while they were there.
Well, yeah, and I'm not
That's
suggesting
my
that,
concern,
yeah, that we would put it by the mud or anywhere in Trophy Club. But, I'm thinking as a compromise, right, cost to do a business, could you find and pay for somewhere else to store these vehicles? I understand the logistics issues of maybe having to run out there or whatever, but, right, it's not out of the question to still run your franchise out of the ship shop, but store the vehicles on a different lot that you pay lease for or buy or, whatever that may be.
once again, if I'm alone at the store and I have to go get the vehicle somewhere else, if you can tell me who's going to run the store while I go get the vehicle somewhere else, that works. But if you can tell me who's going to be in the store while I go do that, therein lies a problem. It's just Gio and I, and she leaves at 2:30 every day, so from 2:30 on, I'm the only one there.
And you two are the only employees?
Okay, any other discussion? We've had a lot. Anyone want to make a motion how we move this forward, or
Let me give it a shot.
go ahead?
So I would make a motion that we amend PD 13 for accessory use, and we, with the direction that it be taken directly to SUP.
Is that sufficient? It's a little light.
Not for me.
Yeah, well, with maybe stating in there as well, because the SUP will need to have some components, amending the, here we go, this is probably,
Yeah.
Matt can help with this.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, so you could start it where it says the ship shop. Make a motion to amend Plan Development District PD 13, Drac 1, to allow for truck and trailer rental as an accessory use with outdoor storage and display of vehicle by SUP.
Okay, so let me.
By SUP.
Yeah, so let me retract what I said the first time and start reading. To amend Plan Development District 13, PD 13, Track 1, to allow for truck and trailer rental as an accessory use with outdoor storage and display of vehicle by SUP.
That's it. That gets it done.
Correct, yeah.
Any other questions, further questions or comment? Call the point, all in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Next item. Next item on the agenda is to consider the approval of the September 5th, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. I'm sure y'all reviewed all those carefully. Okay, then motion to approve,
So moved.
or some way of motion, second? Any discussion? Any changes to the minutes? Notice, okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, moving on to the last item on the agenda, which used to be the first item on the agenda, is board training. Brandon Wright is going to consider this in a minute. Yes, 5-minute break. Five. 7:51. Okay, you'll have 9 minutes.
Can we do it at 9? Can we do it at
9 minutes.
We don't go past 8 here.
You'll hear a buzzer go off.
We started
There we go.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Very good. Would you like to go ahead and start this item?
Yes.
Right now?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I
Yeah,
was
no,
kind of
no,
waiting
we're
for a kind of a, let's get going.
No, let's go.
All right, first of all, thank you very much for being here I'm going to do a little spiel and then I'll turn it over to Matt for a little while and he'll go ahead and talk to you for a little bit. But our goal tonight is to kind of go through the roles and responsibilities of board members generally here in the town of TrophyClub. So normally what I do is kind of do like a real quick introduction of our new members with it. And so I know one of them is not here this evening. Mr. Sean Holmes, I believe you are new to the group here, right?
He is.
Can you just give us a real quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Sean Holmes, moved to Trophy Club in 2020. Wife was from Grapevine, so COVID haven't had the chance to work from home, so brought me back down pretty dang quick. Yeah, excited to be here. I have a background in GIS, so a lot of computer mapping, that type of deal. So it brought me here.
Very good. And then if we can quickly, just everyone else, go ahead and introduce yourselves so that Sean knows who you are.
So Terry Kesterson, I'm Director of Real Estate and Development for Encore.
Well,
Reg Barberin, I'm moved to the town 2011. I'm construction background with an MBA, work at JP Morgan, and I'm a Virgo. No, I'm kidding. So,
You guys hold my travel card.
I'll note that down there.
Mike Biggs, been in Trophy Club 15 years, a little over 15 years now. Background is in commercial real estate, mainly apartments, which I still dabble in a little bit. So,
Yeah, Mike Branham. I've been a Trophy Club resident since 2017. Been volunteering on the board for a number of years now. My background is capital development planning in the airport environment, but have a master's in urban and regional planning as well, and have worked in a metropolitan planning organization environment too. So, hoping to contribute whatever that means to this group and this body, as long as they'll have me, I suppose.
I'm Paul Jablonski, retired, and
Living the
been-
dream.
Pardon?
Said living the dream.
Oh, yeah, right. Been at Trophy Club for 8 years, next year will be my 4th year with P&Z. My previous life, mechanical engineer, HVAC mostly, and did some, about the last 15 years, was involved with energy conservation programs for critical environments like labs and isolation rooms and ORs, and you get the picture.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. So as you can see, we have a very talented, very diverse group of individuals here on the Planning and Zoning Board. And so I wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about general responsibilities and roles of members of any board or commission here in the town of Trophy Club. So I'm going to cover tonight things like roles. We'll talk about meeting agendas, parliamentary procedures, attendance, conflicts of interest, things like that, emails, just to make sure that everyone here kind of on an annual basis, and we'll do this now kind of starting every October of every year. This happens to be your first meeting of the new fiscal year for us, and so that's why we're going to be doing it here at this meeting. I apologize beforehand if it gets to be a little bit long and boring. If it is, just stop and, either tell a joke or ask me a question on it, and we'll keep going and move along. Let's talk first about staff liaisons. You have a staff liaison here. It is Matt Cox. He's our community development director. He's the one who is here to help you with the roles and responsibilities of this board. That person is assigned by the town manager, right? Board members can you kind of give kind of direction, right, by way of your actions to your liaison. However, you don't directly manage that person, right? That person is not your person to manage. That person is managed through the town's hierarchy of staff, through the town manager. They are responsible for making sure that they distribute the meeting calendars, meeting agendas, preparing the items for you, making sure that when you have questions, he's answering those questions for you and getting the information that you need, and all of that. We also have staff support, right? And Ms. Alicia is here to be able to help us with the meeting minutes and to be able to help kind of keep organized the functions here of the board. again, kind of board members, you can ask staff assistance for different things that you need. If it turns out to be kind of a lot of work, right, they may come and get me involved in there to be able to kind of determine, is that an appropriate request of that? And it usually is from like the nature of, how much research do you want to kind of go back about certain things, right? And we'll talk. I mean, certainly the liaison is here and the staff is here to be able to help you with the questions that you have with that. So always go ahead and talk to Matt first about the things that you need here for this board, and he'll be able to answer your questions, prepare information for you, really make sure that these meetings are as efficient and as effective as they can be with that. And the more that you dialogue with him beforehand to let him know, here's what I need to know and things like that, the more effective he can be in preparing these meetings to be effective and time sensitive, right? No one wants to be here longer than we need to be. In the format that we have of having board chairs and and vice chairs, you have here a chair of the Planning and Zoning Board. The chair of the Planning and Zoning Board is appointed by the town council. Is that right? If I remember correctly, very good. Yes, as it's appointed by the town council. Vice chair is voted on by the group here. And do we have that on the agenda for tonight? No? Okay. So it might be something we have to put onto a future agenda to have you do that. Every year you need to make sure that you're voting on your vice chair for that responsibility. Who's our vice chair right now?
Mike.
It's Mike. Okay, very good. Excellent. Wonderful. In the vice chair role, you serve in that period until like the next time that the new people take seats, right? And then the board goes ahead and re-elects a new person to serve as vice chair. You can always choose the same person, or you can change it up as well. The chair presides over meetings, right? And in the P&Z role, a chair can also vote in that situation. Vice chair will preside at the meeting when the chair is not present. And on the off chance that the chair is not here and the vice chair is not here, and you still have enough to make a quorum, in that situation, usually what happens is that your staff liaison will go ahead and open the meeting for you, right? Call the meeting to order, and then the board will go ahead and select someone to serve as chair for that meeting only, okay? So if Mike and Mike were not here for it, and they decided, Sean's going to go ahead and chair this meeting on it, then everyone would just vote. We make a motion that Sean chairs this meeting, and then someone would second it, vote, and that's moves over and does that responsibility for the day.
Right.
Exactly. That's what we're expecting in the next meeting, by the way.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So what are your responsibilities overall as a board and commission member, right? First of all, the idea of representation. You represent the residents and the citizens of the town of Trophy Club, right? Your job is to sit here and to represent them in considering the items that come before you by way of zoning actions for that. That is why you're here. You want to make sure that you are avoiding, contacts and individual discussions. What does that mean, right? That means that, well, you form a group and your power to act is in the setting of public meetings and acting as a body. So that means that, let's say that outside of this meeting, we have Reggie deciding that he's in Tom Thumb, and Mike comes up to him and they're talking about this item. And then in a different aisle, Sean's over there and he sees him and he comes over and he starts talking to him about this item as well, right? You start to form a quorum outside of the public meeting space talking about matters that are pertinent to this board right here. You need to be very, very careful about that. Why? Because, well, it's illegal under law to be able to do that. All the law says our meetings have to be open and available to the public. In order for it to be open to the public, we have to provide 72 hours of advance notice of that meeting occurring, okay? So you want to make sure that you're kind of being sensitive to that, right? Avoid, now you're at a Christmas party, you all see each other, go ahead, circle around, talk, things like that. Just make sure that you're not talking about planning and zoning business, all right? If we start to talk about planning and zoning business, now you've constituted a meeting even though you never intended to do that there at the location, no matter how informal that conversation might be. Even if it's just, hey, I saw that we got the application in, what do you think about it? Right, that is your public deliberation over that item. It needs to be done in a publicly noticed meeting at the appropriate time. Authority of board members. Remember that as board members, individually, what is your authority? The answer is none, right? You have none. You have zero authority. Your only authority is by acting together as a body and taking a vote on something. That is how you use your authority as a board member to make things happen. So if Mike's out in the public, right, and he says, you know what, to a property owner, this isn't good, bring your zoning in because it's going to be approved. We'll take care of it, right? Now, Mike would never do that on that part, but let's say that happened on that, right? What is the authority of that person in that situation, right? They have none. It's this board here who decides by way of actions as to how things are decided on that. Needing to make sure that because of your status here as a quasi-judicial board, right? Yours is a little bit different than many of our other boards. You actually make decisions that that can be challenged by a court of law down the process, right? So if someone doesn't like a decision for it, those things can be challenged on it. That means that your discussions and your deliberations on topics need to be very, very confined to the public forum when you are actually discussing that item. Why is that? Because if I'm off talking about it in other forums, right, then I'm seen as influencing the decision-making process of this board right here, okay? What that does is it allows someone to challenge your decision based on influencing on matters that were considered outside of the public meeting forum space. And you don't want that to occur, okay? So make sure that your deliberations are happening here the right way. And that when it comes to kind of this avoiding of context and individual discussions, right, we want to make sure that we are not engaging on the topic out in the public space, okay? So, and it is actually a very serious matter for this board. So if a resident comes up to you and has a feeling about something, absolutely, you can be there to listen, right, and take in their input and receive it. I would caution you against voicing your own opinion on that matter to them, okay, on that. You're there to collect information, gather it, that's really important. I can't talk about this in this type of a setting, but I'll be happy to share my thoughts when we get to the meeting on that one. Would be appropriate ways to respond to those situations in order to avoid any potential conflict that is seen as being outside of the public discussion forum space. Okay. Any questions on that topic?
Just real quick.
Please, yeah.
Sorry. The contact, and what if Mike and I just, or let you do something, and we say something about board business. It's just two of us, it's not a quorum, that's still, you need to avoid.
No, yeah, so again, and then, so there's, I would say, if you're talking to just one other person, you're fine.
No.
Right, on that. Now, here's what you have to avoid, right? You talk to Mike, Mike then mentions that to Reggie, Reggie then mentions it to Sean, Sean then mentions it to Mike. Now, all of a sudden, you've actually created a chain where you were even having a meeting, even though you weren't in the same space or the same time as each other as well, all right? It's, you know, so that's called, it's either a daisy chain or it's a walking quorum. There's lots of different ways that people have characterized that type of a meeting, right? It kind of relays an information back and forth, and so everyone is kind of aware of it and of what's going on, what people's thoughts are, but it wasn't done in a public forum, right, on that part. And so my, you know, the way I usually handle it is, like, if you want to talk to one person, do that, but then just stop from there, right? You know, don't ever go any further with that. And if someone asks you, hey, what did this person think about something? You know, I would say, you know, can't really talk for that person on it, because it begins to kind of put it all together, okay? Now, the way that you stay connected, right, is you usually are talking with your staff liaison, okay? Your staff liaison is not a voting member of the board, so you can ask your questions of him. Get your things handled that way, you know, on this. This is what you want to know. This is what you need to understand from that point of view, and he can help do that. But even he can't say, well, this member wants to do this and that, and then if we all get together, we can do it this way with it, because now you've created it with a quorum of people, right, because then you've violated the laws.
Can we talk about past board issues that have already been decided on?
No, you cannot. Nope.
Same.
Nope.
Same rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it is, I'll just say, if it's anywhere in the realm of planning and zoning business items at all, whether it's a current agenda item or could be a future agenda item or anything like that, that is within the purview of the jurisdiction of this board and is seen as a topic that needs to be discussed in public.
But
okay?
if we've decided on an item last year, 6 months ago, we basically adjudicated that in the public forum.
Yeah.
We can engage in conversation about those items.
Yeah, about how it went, right? Yeah, like, you know, this is what we did. Hey, it turned out great, or hey, it didn't turn out so great, right? You know, type of things. Those types of things, you're exactly right. Yeah, you're just commenting on past things, on past decisions, on that. But kind of entering the world of reconsidering changes or things like that, I would say don't engage in conversations like that with each other on that, because you're now creating this public discussion space. Anything that's seen as being the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, needs to be handled in a public meeting when you're discussing it as a board member. Okay. All right, so how can you be effective board members? Well, first of all, make sure that you're prepared, right? And this board actually does an excellent job of that. Read the packets before you come. Matt does an excellent job putting together information, talking with the applicants, getting things lined up and kind of helping that to happen. But be prepared, read the packets, ask questions beforehand if you have them. Don't feel like you only have to come here to ask questions. Usually you'll have a couple of questions. I would say most people usually do with it. Feel free to reach out to Matt and go ahead and ask those questions. Know the law. Be aware of what you can and cannot do with that. If you're not sure, right, again, talk to Matt. Matt can always talk to our town attorney. I would ask, please don't call our town attorney directly on it, so they start the meter whenever we talk to them. And so we usually kind of like to handle the things we can handle without them, and then the things we do need them for, we go ahead and pull them in, and usually try and keep that time to a minimum, right? We tell them exactly what we need, and that's exactly what we're looking for.
Mike, stop calling the town attorney.
Ours do the same thing.
Yeah.
You can hear the meter start.
Exactly, yep, it starts right away, yep. Maintain focus, right, so stay on the agenda item that's in front of you. For sometimes you'll want to deviate and decide topics and things like that. Stay on the item that you're talking about. Be courteous. This is probably going to be, as we saw tonight, I would say, planning and zoning and land use items in general tend to be our most contentious items in our town and any town in America. It's just what brings the people out for that. It is not easy. You are literally deciding between winners and losers when you're up there making decisions on that. That being said, we can always be courteous, right? Treat people with respect and make sure that we are doing all that we can to give them their due process in this, on both sides of the equation, okay, always. Be punctual, please arrive to meetings on time, helps us to get started. And the other ones I think are pretty good. All right, we've covered a little bit of this, but the Texas Open Meetings Law defines a meeting as any deliberation between a quorum, right, of a governmental body at which any public business or any public policy is discussed for it. So that's kind of again, and it has to be kind of within your purview. So, if you're talking about how our parks are doing today, right, that's not within the purview of your board with it, but other things you certainly would be. For those people, they can't talk about the parks together as a quorum, right? It doesn't, that would be within their purview. Notice of each meeting, that happens 72 hours prior to, so staff will always take care of making sure that things are noticed properly, as well as then you have the responsibility of making sure that things are noticed by way of newspaper notices and by mailings that happen as well. So there are multiple layers of notices that happen about certain topics with that. And I don't know if Matt's going to cover it a little bit either, but that, making sure that you understand clearly what it means when we say we notice something to the community. It was brought up tonight, the idea of like, well, why don't you notice the entire town, right, with stuff like that? Everyone wants to know about this, right? And the answer is because the notices that we do have a very specific purpose, right? When we're noticing people, that's a state law item that says people within a 200-foot radius of the area that we're talking about have the ability to protest something, and that protest actually has implications for this board and for the town council when they're making votes on that. That's why Matt keeps track of the addresses to make sure that we know exactly who's protesting, that they're the property owners of that property, right? And then we're looking for certain numbers at a certain percentage, at 20%, it flips the switch where it requires supermajority votes of this board and the town council to be able to approve that particular item on it. And so those are the ones who get direct mailings, because the direct mailing is you're within the protest zone, right? And we're allowing you the opportunity to provide your response about being able to protest this item. The way other people learn about the meetings are, well, we have publicly posted agendas, right? Otherwise, all the time we'd be shooting out agenda items to every single resident. Which one's important and which one's not? Please, if people are concerned, please stay aware of what's going on in your local governments. We have lots of information on our websites and agendas and things like that to be able to do it. But that's not the way that we notice people with direct mailings to the entire town. Whenever we're voting on something, imagine the massive mailing we would be doing all the time at the council, this board and every other board that we have about items being considered. And then, so let's talk about the agendas on that. Typically, you're going to call the meeting to order, and then you're going to allow for public comment, as you did tonight, and did a great job with that, with it. And public comment can be any particular comment that people want to come up and make, right? So it doesn't have to be germane to this body or anything else, really. They just get to kind of come up and make public comments during that time. when they are talking about an agenda item, right, then they need to make sure that they're actually speaking pertinent to that particular agenda item. So let's say we're talking about tonight's agenda item regarding Ship Shop, but I actually got up and I started talking about the other agenda item that we had. You can tell that person this isn't that opportunity for you. You're going to go ahead and sit back down, so that we can continue to discuss the pertinent matters to this case. Okay. All right, then you normally go into your regular items. You have a lot of public hearings, and so public hearings are a great opportunity to let the public come up and make comment for that. And this is a place where the council really encourages the public to get involved. So, and particularly this is a, something I think that's a little bit, it's a newer of an emphasis. I think previous councils have always wanted this. This council is emphasizing it a little bit more of, hey, we'd really like to see a little bit more public involvement at the board and commission level. That's not only at the council level, so come here, make your voice heard as well. And then also, when it goes to council, if you would like to continue making your voice heard, make it known there. But what sometimes happens is people don't come here, they only go to council meeting. And then the time to kind of work through an item as you did tonight and kind of consider the best ways, right? Those are kind of messy in a council meeting that's much more formal than a planning and zoning commission meeting. Okay. And then every now and then you may need to go into executive session on an item. So if there's legal implications, right? So for legal advice, every now and then, if we think something that might need a little bit more legal advice, we'll make sure that the attorney is here to be able to provide legal advice to you on that. An executive session essentially is a time when you can step out of the public forum and actually have a meeting behind closed doors. Now, because of that, state law says there's only a few topics that you can do that on, right? You can't do it on you can't just decide, we want to have this meeting in closed session. There has to be a legal purpose for it. And those things are limited to things like I want to buy land. I have an economic development deal in front of me. I need to receive legal advice on an item. That's kind of the one that you'll use more often than not, because you don't buy land, you're not making financial incentives to companies on that part of it. But certainly in the area of legal advice, sometimes you'll be like, wait a second, we're not quite sure how clear the law is for us to be able to do something or not. And you don't want to necessarily say that in public to the applicant, right? With that, and so sometimes you might need to go into executive session. And then everyone's favorite part of the meeting is to adjourn, right? At the end, you don't require a motion to adjourn. You just go ahead and once all the business is done, the chair just says, go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and the meeting is over with that. All right, let's talk about rules of procedure and how this part works when it comes to like the parliamentary procedures. So the way that this board takes action together is by motions. Okay, so the question is, how do you know what the board wants to do? The answer is that there's a motion made, and that will determine how it is that the board wants to act. Okay, so let's take a simple item. You want to go ahead and approve an application that's in front of you. All right, so I would make so the way you say it is just a clear kind of motion of what you intend to do. I make a motion that we approve this specific item, right, that we're talking about. Let's say we're considering whether or not to allow horse-drawn carriages, right, in our community. I would make a motion to allow that, the horse-drawn carriages. That's only a first. All motions require a second. Okay, so if I say a first and no one says a second, the motion just dies because it lacks a second motion on it. So someone says a first, someone says a second, and at that point, the chair then calls for a vote of all on that part. Now, just because I make a motion or I second the motion doesn't mean I've approved, I'm voting to approve the item. Sometimes you make a motion and whatever it is just to deny it, right? No, and then it's on its way, right? Even though the motion was to approve for that. And then you can also make motions to deny as well. With that, I make a motion to deny, and then you're just voting the other way, right? Yes would mean denial, no would mean not denial. Let's see, some other motions that are particularly helpful. Tabling. All right, or postponing a conversation. Right? You can vote to postpone, vote to table, same thing, which is I'm basically going to put this item down until our next meeting. Okay, sometimes you can also then say, maybe we're not going to be ready at the next meeting, so maybe I'm going to put it in June. I want this to come back in June, so I'm going to table this item until June with it. You got to be real specific as to when it is you want to see something again. But if ever you're in a meeting and for some reason you're just not prepared to take a vote on it, and you're thinking, you know what, there's probably a way to figure this one out, right? But we're just not quite there yet. What I would recommend is that then you table items, postpone items to future meetings to continue to work on it rather than denying. The reason why is because once you deny something, it starts this whole process on the back. If there was a way to get there, right, they can't bring back a similar application for a period of time, and it just kind of slows up the whole process for that. And so it's much, much easier for an item to be tabled, right? If you're kind of like, well, maybe there's a way, on this one, we might be open to it with certain conditions, but we might not be there tonight. We might not have figured out all the details, then table it to a future meeting, ask for some things to be done in between, right? And then go ahead and reconsider that at a future time. So that might be something like, we're going to table this item to the next time, but, maybe developer, this is what we expect to see from you, and staff, these are some things that we would like to see from you. Get together, work on a couple of these points that we've identified as being the problem points, and then we'd like to see what your recommendations are at the next meeting. Those would be very appropriate ways to table an item to the next meeting and not just kill it where it is, right, when you know there's ways to work on it.
Can you
Please.
table anything?
Yeah.
Preliminary, final, this,
Good question. Yeah, good points. Yeah, sometimes you're under a shot clock.
Right.
Okay, so state law says you have to take items with, so things like preliminary plats, final plats, things like that are under a 30-day, right, 30-day time clock. So once the application's submitted, you have to get a meeting together very quickly, and then you have to take action on that item. So you could not postpone that later than that period without the penalties of it automatically being approved because you've waited too long to act on it. So, so depending on where you are, but most of the time you're not going to be able to.
Like the replat tonight, you couldn't have tabled it.
Correct.
Oh, no, you could have.
Well, replat you can. Yeah, because is replat on the shot clock?
Yeah.
It is? Okay, never mind, you can't.
But it was approved anyway at the time.
You could have
but if we
tabled it,
didn't
but
want
then it was just
If we didn't want
automatic.
to
Yeah,
to do anything,
Yeah.
then,
yeah, because no action on those items is approval, right, as we know. So if
Well-
you don't actually take an action by the end of the shot clock period,
Yeah.
then it goes forward.
so you'd have to have a special meeting or something, and,
We have before.
Yeah, we've had.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so if ever that happens, one way for you to handle that is actually, on those ones, what we would recommend is that if there's like a question on the time period, you don't have enough time, whatever it is, you actually would vote to deny on it, because that way then it kind of starts things over again, right? And you can go back and reconsider. Other things, so sometimes, and particularly a body like this, right, where there's, sometimes there's an item that is just being discussed over and over and over again, you're gotten to the point where it's like, okay, we're just kind of repeating ourselves, someone can call for the question, right? A call the question means someone make a motion, we're done discussing this, okay? And then you would go ahead and move forward with something being done. Now, that's up to the discretion of the chair, right? The chair can say, I don't think we're done yet with discussion, so I think we're gonna, whatever it is. If someone then says, well, I move that we, move to the motion part of that, and the second, then you would actually take a vote on whether or not you just want to end discussion and begin now the voting process there,
I
right?
have a question for you.
Please, yeah.
I was in a meeting here one time, I was not running that meeting, but there was a motion made and it was seconded. Or I seconded, and the guy said, no, we have to have more discussion. Do you have more discussion after you have the second? I guess you could you, or is that,
Yeah,
you have
so,
to vote on it?
yeah, so technically by Robert's Rules of Order, so this always is the debate, right? So there's Robert's Rules of Order, the strict version, and then there's the not as strict version, right, for it. The strict version says, once you have a motion and a second on the table, discussion ends and you vote. There is no more discussion.
Right.
Usually, the chair will allow a version of continued discussion, but it does not have to, right? Remember that the chair presides over the meeting here, but the chair does not get to necessarily make the decisions without the impact of the group here, right? So let's say in this situation, you have a first and a second. Let's say Reggie says, but I have a few more comments I would like to make. And the chair says, we're moving to the vote, right? Reggie then might say, I make a motion that we allow for continued discussion, right? Paul says, I second that motion, right? Essentially overriding the chair's decision. Vote, if the vote is yes, then the group continues to discuss this, right? The chair presides at the meeting, but the meeting is always the meeting of the board. Board's always in control, right? So if your chair gets out of control, right? I very much like your chair. If he gets out of control, then you all have the ability to keep him within control, right? By bringing up, I make a motion that we undo what you just did, right? Or, and it can go right back into the.
So I'm
place of
not
doing that.
violating anything if there's a second on the motion and say, is there any other discussion? I mean,
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah,
No,
so-
no.
this
Again,
guy was really adamant that there had to be more discussion, this guy.
yeah,
He was one of our ex-mayors, he got really adamant about it.
yeah, no, the chair has kind of latitude to be able to kind of allow discussion, not allow discussion at certain points, right?
Right.
With that, there, public hearings, you don't have discretion, you gotta allow people to talk, right?
Right.
And things like that, so. Okay, Any questions on things like that? These are just kind of some common motions. Here's another one, real quick, just to make sure that you're aware of it. A motion to amend, okay? So tonight, we had amending an ordinance, right? So let's say that, let's take tonight's example, right, where we make a motion to amend this pursuant to a SUP, okay? But let's say that Sean doesn't like the fact that the SUP language is in there, right? And so after Terry gets done making his motion, Sean could, right, before the vote happens, right, I make a motion to amend the motion,
That's happened a few times.
yeah, to remove the SUP, right, requirement, and have it just be the way it was originally. All right, now, if he gets a second on the motion to amend the motion, right, so Reggie says, you know what, I like that idea, let's do it on that, so he seconds the motion. Now you're actually voting on whether or not to amend the motion.
Right.
Okay, so your vote is whether or not to take the SUP language out of the motion or leave it in the motion. If it fails, right, the SUP motion stays in, and then you're back to the original question. Now we need to vote on the motion of the original question, right? If it passes, then his amendment, his motion is now instantaneously changed. And it is now without the SUP language, and you're voting on that item. Okay, and on that motion with the amended change in it.
Right.
Okay, so that's one that you could use every now and then when you hear something and you're like, no, that's not how I would have, I don't want to vote on it that way, I want to vote on it a different way, then you would make a motion to amend the motion. Okay.
Do you have to get that in before someone seconds it?
No, you don't, no.
So someone can second it,
Just
then
before
you
the
can
vote.
say it.
Correct, yep, yep.
Just
And
before
then
the
point of
vote.
order, I make a motion that we amend that, right? Before the vote happens, exactly, you need to make sure you do that part, okay? Robert's Rules of Order, they're a little bit confusing, and they tend to favor those who know the rules. That's why we want to make sure that everyone kind of knows the rules, right? And how it generally works with it. And remember, the general concept there is everything that happens needs to stay under the control of the entire board, right? No one person can hijack, can take over the meeting and make everyone else do one thing or another. It comes down to the board, but it does require board members taking the motions and saying those things and kind of getting it out there, okay? All right, we talked about this attendance. Remember that attendance is important, particularly for this body here, because you're trying to make sure that, you know, developers and everyone, and builders and things, they're all on timelines, right? They're trying to make sure that things happen. The more timely that we can get meetings happening, and when we call a meeting, actually having people that are there for a quorum is very, very helpful. We do report to the town council, you know, what the attendance numbers look like at the end of the year as well. Conflicts of interest. So this is an interesting one. Conflicts of interest is anything that you have that would be you being financially incentivized to be able to vote one way or another, right? So if you have any direct incentive or win or gain that comes by way of a decision that's in front of you, right? So let's say a developer is up here and they're a builder, and it just so happens that you're an investor in that builder to a certain degree, right? You have to have more than 5% and things. Then you have a substantial stake in what's happening, and then you have to be able to recuse yourself from that, right? So I would just go ahead and declare that I have a conflict of interest, and when you do that, you actually, it's not even that you just kind of don't participate, you actually get up during that whole agenda item, and you keep these chairs here, and you keep going beyond these chairs, and you work your way out into the hallway, okay, and you stay out there during the discussions. The idea is to not have you involved in any way in those discussions on that part. Trust me, it helps you to not be involved at all in that conversation, okay?
In that example,
Yeah.
The developer develops a product that I, as a consumer now, 2 years later, like.
To buy.
And and I want to go and buy a unit. Can that be? Is it retroactive? Do we need to avoid that perception?
Yeah. So I would say under normal buying situations, no. Here's what you need to avoid. Right, is, hey, developer, I helped you get a positive vote here, I need a discount on that unit, right? That would 100% be seen as, as a financial incentive for you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you going out and buying one like everyone else does is not a problem at all. Okay,
And if you think it's a conflict, just bring it up.
correct,
Yeah,
exactly,
Just throw
yeah.
it out on the table, because
Yep.
we can find out real quickly, you know. I remember the mayor even got up and left a meeting one time.
Yep,
She had a
yep,
conflict. of
exactly, yep. Mhm.
Could a conflict of interest be something if it impacts your area? So say someone wants to built zone, you say you're in that 200-foot buffer, would you be like,
So,
can't?
yeah, so I would say, essentially, if you receive one of the letters, you need to let us know
Gotcha.
on that one, because you likely have a conflict of interest. Mhm. Because most likely you own your property.
Right.
Right, and my property has a win or lose situation going on with the decision that's made within the 200-foot buffer area, right, on that part, and that's the part. Now, if I'm a renter there, you might, anyway, there's some details that would need to be worked through on that part, but certainly make Matt aware of that
Bring
particular
it up,
case.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you ever get one of the letters in the mail, be like, oh, wait, that's my cue to go talk to Matt and let him know.
And there's, these three specific actions apply if there's any conflict of interest.
That is correct, yes, yep.
It's
So.
not just 1, 2, or 3, it's all of them.
Correct, all three of them.
Right.
Yep, yeah, so, and it's a legal thing to declare your conflict of interest, right? So there has to be a form filled out, and it has to be sworn to and things like that, and we'll get all that taken care of with you, okay? Also that result, so if I work, obviously, if you work for any of the people that you're working with, right, that's a financial interest. If any family member, it's that first line of sanguinity, whatever it is that they say, it's wife, parent, child, it's those aunts, uncles, people like that, right? With it, that line of people, then you need to make sure that you're declaring that, right? Talk to Matt first. Matt will talk to Dean, our town attorney, and be able to help you with that. Okay. Sometimes we'll have periodic trainings that are available to you, and we invite you to take care of those and participate in those as you can. Media relations and social media postings. Okay, this one is one that we need to be kind of aware of and careful on. Remember at the very beginning when I talked about the idea that as a P&Z member, right, individually you have no authority on that. If you are on social media making statements on behalf of, or even implying the idea of on behalf of the board, right, that's a prohibited thing to do, okay? So don't do that. Never make any thing. If the media calls you, none of you are on our line of media approved people to talk to the media on that. So you don't talk to the media, right? You'll just reference them to staff, and then we'll send them through our normal communications channel to be able to make sure that we're delivering messaging the correct way and accurate information and things like that. Trust me, what we don't want to happen is where you misstate something, right? You say something wrong, the wrong way, whatever it is, right? It causes a whole lot of problems for you, for us, for everyone on that. So in those situations, send them our way, right? And we'll put them through the normal communication process that we have in working with the media on that. Social media, I wouldn't post on anything related to items that are coming before this board on social media at all, ever with it. And I wouldn't, and certainly wouldn't do so even, because on your post you might have someone there, oh, like I'm a P&Z member or whatever it is, right? And people will imply statements you say as being representative of the town. With that, be very, very careful with that part of it. We don't want to overstate that relationship. Okay. Town email. All of you have been provided town emails on that. The reason why we do that is because, and in this board, it's actually more so, it's important for all of them, right? But again, more so because of the quasi-judicial nature of this board with it, which is that all of the email traffic that we'll send you will be by way of the town email address. Okay, when we are required to provide information to the public, whenever the public asks for it, it's called the Freedom of Information Act. That means that anything that you're discussing that's town business that you put in any form of writing, right? Whether that be on social media, email, text, written paper, whatever that is. If I'm a public person, I can make a request to see everything that the P&Z board has commented about or made a record of about a particular item, right? And then the law doesn't say, and it's only if it's on a town device. Okay, so if I've been using my own personal email and doing that, I have to go into my personal email and pull all those emails out and be able to do that on that part, right? You don't want to open yourselves up to that type of review, right? Keep all of your information on the town email system so that way when we receive information requests, all we have to do is go on to and pull all the items that Terry has in his email address, pull them up and provide them to the public on that part. Also, that comes with a bit of a word of caution, right? Which is make sure that the items that are in anything you ever put in writing, again, text or whatever, all those things, if it's related to town business, that anything that you're considering in any way, right, that it be done in a way that you wouldn't mind everyone reading it at any point, because that's literally what the law is. It
So
is
the
that.
notes I'm taking, so say someone's coming up and I'm writing notes down here, they can be, like, let me see that.
Public record. Yep,
See my chicken scratch.
absolutely, yep.
They couldn't read mine.
I'm about to say, it don't
Yep.
look
Looks like
legible, but.
hieroglyphics, yeah.
Yeah. Or let's say you're during the meeting, you're texting over to Mike, hey, how are you gonna vote? I would never do that, by the way. Okay, bad idea. And Mike saying, not sure yet, check with Reggie, right? And then, and someone says, I want to see their email exchanges while they were up here, or their text message exchanges, that's public record on that. All that is now in the public space, right? So you have to be very, very careful with that, on that part of it. Remember that anything that you do related to these jobs is public information. We give you the town email addresses because we want you to use those, because it makes your life a lot easier on that. It makes our life easier too, because we can just go in and pull the information, right? Because what we don't want is, we ask for, I'll pick on Mike again, right? Because he's a good guy. We say, Mike, I need all your emails, and he's got a lot of emails in his personal email addresses, but he says, I don't have any. Right, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, well, we actually have a lot of other records that show that you've been using that email address for different things. So now we actually have to get, a warrant to be able to go into your email address and do those things you don't want. You don't ever want that situation on that. So that's why I say just use your town email for all town business. If you get an email, receive an email to your personal email address, I would send it from your personal email address to your town email address and then respond from your town email address. Okay, is how I would do that. Keep everything there. Much, much cleaner, much easier. Okay. Any questions on the Freedom of Information Act stuff and town emails? We've prepared a new board and commission manual for you. I think everyone has actually received a copy of that. Very, very helpful if you ever have time to read through it and kind of see some of your general rules and responsibilities. There is board-specific training that Matt's going to go over with you now, but this is the general, everyone needs to hear this message that I've delivered. Any questions that you have for me about these items? No? All right, again, thank you very much for your service. Hopefully, we've touched on some important items today that will help you to be effective in your service. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Matt or me, about any of these items, we can help you with it, or we can help you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
We're close to adjourning. I feel it.
We need a motion.
Yeah, you don't even need a motion.
Second?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to run through these pretty quick. So, overview of the commission, so established to advise the town council on physical development. So, most everything that we do, it is a recommendation to council, consists of 7 citizens. Members serve 2-year terms. Town council appoints the chair, commission appoints vice chair. But I believe they appointed you
the
as
council
vice
did,
chair again.
yeah.
So you serve as an advisory board to the council, address zoning and planning of land and public improvements, provide input on streets, utilities, and civic improvements, recommend annexation plans, and regulatory ordinances. So a lot of these, at this point, we've about built out. So you're going to see more of the SUP style kind of things. Recommend a comprehensive master plan for town development, maybe someday. Conduct periodic reviews of the master plan, hold public hearings on zoning changes, and recommend changes to zoning plans, maps, and ordinances. So we've got that coming every few years. We'll update all of our IRCs, international codes. So that's coming up this coming year. Powers and duties. Review and act on subdivision plating proposals, like this evening. Ensure land development aligns with comprehensive master plan, hold hearings and meetings as mandated by the council, and provide recommendations based on collected information. Meetings and voting. So meetings are typically held first Thursday of each month as needed. As y'all know, we get into the holiday season, we're kind of juggling. This is, council only has 1 meeting in November, 1 in December, so you'll see some of these offshoots like, this evening. All meetings are subject to Texas Open Meetings Act and a quorum, a majority of members 4. As y'all know, we have had some meetings with 4, but I really like having that 5th, at minimum, because 4,
We only had a couple with 4 in the last
yeah,
3
but it makes the applicant very nervous. I mean, if it's if it's
Yeah.
a preliminary plat or final plat, but if it's something like this evening and they walk in and there's just 4, boy, they're,
Particularly the 4 that voted against him.
yeah, that's right. Key responsibilities: ensure compliance with state laws and town ordinances, uphold the town's vision through zoning and planning efforts. Y'all do a wonderful job on that. Support council in achieving development goals. Ooh,
That's it.
I mean, we're done.
that's it, unless you have any questions. One quick thing on the email. So this past email, we did send to personal and your town email, mainly for Sean, but wanting to make sure that if you're not getting that, because y'all all know I'm texting king, right? So I'm texting within a couple hours, did you get the packet? Are you gonna be at the meeting? We're making sure, because it's been a while for, having a meeting, and if your password changed and you don't get that packet, I want to make sure that you got it. So we did, send to personals, but that's kind of that first meeting of the year thing, so,
I've been trying to reset my password for 2 months.
I know.
Yeah,
So-
I got on the phone with the guy.
So do you get the Google thing like once a week to sign back in and refresh?
So if you get a hold, just remind me, I'll have IT get a hold of you. They fixed that on mine, because it was happening
Well, I'm
weekly.
not even set up because he's gonna call me he comes up here once a week, he says. He said, I'll call you, come up. He was in my computer for an hour and a half the other day, and he couldn't figure out how to reset the password.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a loop. You can't.
Yeah, mine gets into that Google interface. Once a week, it comes like Tuesday or
I don't know what he
Wednesday.
was doing, yeah.
And when I open it up, it says, renew your Google password. No, it's the same password, but you just gotta go through that interface to get it to open back up. And if it's not been done, emails won't download. They
Right,
just sit in
right.
the
They
email.
just float there, yeah.
Yeah, they just float until you do.
So I'll pass that on,
Okay.
but I just need to, as Brandon said, we need to have that as the main,
I
communication.
need a password reset.
Okay,
At risk of
It's-
becoming the local
it's-
IT guy,
it's pretty much everybody.
I would recommend pairing your apps together. So since it's Microsoft Office or Microsoft Outlook, get the Microsoft Authenticator. Don't try to authenticate through Google or
No, I
something
got
else.
the authenticator.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, make sure it's the Microsoft one and not the Google one.
Yeah.
Because it'll mess, those things
couldn't
don't
get
always
that.
talk well.
I said, I did everything they said, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, sorry.
You thought you'd
I
done.
thought we were adjourned.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
who first motion? Who did the motion?
Motion.
He did.
Yeah. We don't have.
We've always done it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've always done it.
Vote.
That way
It's
they
our
can see
twist
their
on
name
Robert's rules.
on the meeting
all in
notes,
favor.
And they can show their wife, see,
They're
I was
customized.
there.
All in favor?
They're all in favor.
We're all in favor.
Okay. Meeting closed at what time?
8:39 PM.
Thank you.
It's not a record.
You said you work for Encore?
Yes.
I work for